So I think, first of all, thank you, everyone, for being out here. So many familiar faces, people who've given a lot of work and energy for the Jazz, especially over these last 8 years. Thanks, Jazz Nation, who are tuning in. We know how much you care. But most of all, thanks to Quin and the Snyder family for everything they've given to the state, to the organization. This is truly a day about them. And Amy, we know how hard you've worked to support Quin and all of us, and you guys have truly given way more than you've taken from not only this organization but for the state of Utah. This organization's had three coaches in 34 years, and Quin is the second winningest coach of all time here, and that says a lot. But most of all, Quin's about relationships. It's what he cares about. I think that from Ashley and I, coming into a new job, a new responsibility. I remember getting sick right when I first started. It was like my first welcome during COVID was getting sick, and Quin was the first person that called and sent a package down to our family, and that's who Quin is. And so from the bottom of our hearts, from our ownership group, from the Miller family, who were responsible for bringing you in, one of the things that's gotten us most excited when we came in was the opportunity to work with you, and that did not disappoint. And so we thank you guys.
Very well said, Ryan. I think I've gotten to know Quin and Amy a little bit better in these last few weeks. We've had a lot of conversations about life, basketball, contracts. I first met Quin in an elevator in Europe. It was our first face-to-face confrontation years ago when he was scouting the world. Where were we? Greece.
Athens,
yeah, Athens. But it's been a pleasure just this short time I've been here, just to get to know Quin and see him in action. And I'm glad that I did. I'm glad I got to know him. I feel like we have a good relationship that can go on well past this job and this opportunity. And I know that he's going to be coaching somewhere else in the near future, next year probably, and be the most wanted coach out there. He's well respected in the NBA by all of his peers. And I'm just grateful for the chance to get to spend time with him. The thing that probably, what Ryan said about relationships, I've been around a lot of coaches in my lifetime and a lot of very good coaches. But the one thing that stood out to me the most about Quin was his time spent in developing relationships and building relationships. And I appreciate that very much. I think it's a very undervalued quality of great coaches. And he's one of the best at that, and along with many other great talents that we all know of his brilliance and hard work. I too would like to thank Amy for her sacrifice. And I know what it's like being a coach and in the NBA and what that entails. And it entails a lot. Grateful to get to know you, Coach.
I would have passed if I knew I was going to get embarrassed like this. But thank you guys both for your kind words. I guess first I'd just like to thank Gail and the Miller family for giving me a chance when, there wasn't, I don't know. Thank you for the opportunity. And I think Danny just touched on it. Ryan, you and Danny, even in a short period of time, the opportunity to begin to build those relationships. And Danny mentioned the dialogue that, that we had over a course of time. I spoke to Ryan as well at length, and we really just shared and tried to articulate a lot of things. And it was helpful to me, actually in being and working through all this to have those conversations. So thank you. And again, I guess it's a theme with the relationships. I think the other overwhelming theme for me has just been gratitude. I couldn't be more grateful for my time here. there's so many people that are responsible for that. And, to the extent there's a real sense of loss and some sorrow and sadness, I think that's to be expected given everything that, that took place here and that I feel like I tried to give. So, that for me gets back to the players first and foremost, not just the guys on the current team, but, every coach knows that, players are the key to everything you're doing. And for me, the pivotal part of that makes it so worthwhile is the type of guys that I had an opportunity to coach. And again, just grateful to them for everything they gave, the trust. And then my staff. This business can be lonely as a head coach, and to have the support, of all the people that are through that wall is really essential. They keep you at least balanced as possible, and that goes right to Amy, my wife. I think the bookends were the last time I was here. I was a little younger, and Amy was pregnant with Madeline, I think 7 months pregnant. So, a little different. But in both instances, I guess the fact that we both in our family are so grateful for, we were then and we are even more so now. So I could ramble on, but thank you again, and appreciate everything. And it's been a great opportunity.
Thanks, Coach. I think the Millers have set an incredible legacy with Coach Sloan, and you're part of that family.
Thank you.
Any other remarks or about questions?
No.
If you have a question, please raise your hand.
Quinn, you said in your statement yesterday that you felt like the team just needed a different voice in order to move on. At what point did you start to feel like that, and then why do you think that became the case?
I think as I tried to say in my statement, which was, a challenge to try to capture a lot of that for me in even making a decision. But it was just time. I tried to, give voice to that, and it really isn't any more complicated than that as far as trying to look into a lot of different, reasons and things like that. I just felt like I got to a place where it was time.
Quinn, what is next for you? What do you see in the future?
I've been so consumed with this decision over a period of weeks, and that's been where my mindset has been. 100%. I think Danny can attest to that, and as can Amy. So I haven't really thought about that any.
Coach, was there a point where, you just kind of figured that, this was the right decision for you? Was there a specific point where you figured it was the right decision for you?
I think something I labored over, and, you never have complete clarity on something like this. And, I think Saturday night, after thinking about it for a significant period of time, over the course of weeks, and just felt like it was time, and felt like that. But Saturday night, we wanted to talk about it Sunday.
Coach, do you have an intention of getting back into NBA coaching right away, or taking a little bit of time to step back and reassess where you want to go?
I think Danny's going to push me back in and give me a moment after that. No, I appreciate you, having me try to respond to that again. And I guess say the same thing that I mentioned with Andy is I haven't. That hasn't been on my mind at all. I've just been focused on this, and it's been consuming on many levels. I don't have any intention of. I don't know what I'm going to do next year, and as far as coaching, next year or anything along that line. I know I'm going to be at Halloween with my daughter, which we talked about yesterday, and that was a silver lining of me stepping down.
Coach, have you had a chance to talk to a lot of the team, and kind of what was their reaction and what was those conversations like?
I did talk to a number of the guys. A few others we tried to reach out to, and I've that's something that is kind of a regular occurrence for me. I try not to bother them too much, but obviously this was a different situation. But yeah, I did get a chance to talk to those guys, and as you'd expect, the type of guys that we have were really supportive, understanding, and whatnot. So.
Quinn, you mentioned 8 years ago in the press conference.
Mm-hmm.
If you look back, what do you hope your footprint was or your stamp was in those 8 years?
I guess the things that are really memorable to me, I have a hard time thinking about a footprint necessarily, but I think memories in and of themselves are akin to that. I do remember Game 7 in LA, and that really was symbolic of a journey over a period of years to get to that point. And making the playoffs for the first time in my tenure here, and for the Jazz in some time as well. I think this building that we're in right now, metaphorically, it's a big building, so I'm not sure about the footprint, but having a chance even to be in here, particularly when no one's around, a lot of pride that goes into that. I didn't lay the bricks. There's so many other people that did that, both figuratively and literally. But it is something that I feel a lot of pride in having been a part of. And I could probably keep digging it. I was thinking the other day about, and I didn't get Jordan Clarkson, but I had, and this is no footprint whatsoever, but something that the bubble was a unique experience for our team, and I can recall hearing in the locker room Jordan Clarkson. I didn't know it was him at the time, playing Frank Sinatra's "That's Life," and I don't know whose footprint that's probably JC's footprint, but a lot of people that have a lot of footprints, and something we're all proud of.
He's also a coach that had one of the best defenses in the league, and then kind of transformed into one of the best offenses in the league, and that's very rare to be able to coach different styles of team and have so much success on one side of the ball or another. And I think that's an impressive footprint.
Rudy's footprint's probably the most impressive on every level. I don't know that we'd be up here without Rudy and a number of other guys.
Danny, how big is the pool of candidates? You probably had a little time to think about this. It didn't catch most of us by surprise, so I'm sure you considered it on some level.
Yeah, I've considered it. I've spent some time contemplating the possibility. Always have. When I've been through coaching searches a couple times before, so I have my ideas, but we really haven't discussed it internally with the rest of the staff or with Ryan, and so I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I have a few, but I'm not sure I'd know them well enough to even give you their names, but it's a very beginning of the process. I'd like to spend some time with Quinn and get his ideas even before he goes away.
Hi, Lindsay Ertz from KSL News Radio. This decision impacts not just the NBA and basketball, but the city of Salt Lake. Quinn, what's your message to the fans and to the city?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that, because in my opening remarks, I started talking about my family. I skipped over that. And, I mentioned, Amy being pregnant, and we've two of my kids have lived here their whole life. The other two, they don't remember Russia or Atlanta. This is a special place, and one that's not going to change for us. It's one of the things that makes it really difficult. Anytime you talk about, a city, fans, it's friendships too. And, there's a lot of people in this room that I'll really miss, and including the fans. When we beat OKC, I don't think I've ever heard the place as loud as it was. So, that goes without saying, but it's more than the support and the cheering in the game. It's the connectivity that I felt, in the community and everything that everybody gave, through thick and thin. I'm grateful for that.
Dana Green.
Coach, you inherited a team that had won 25 games the year before and now has taken the 6 straight playoff appearances. What are you most proud of what you've done with this team over the last 8 years?
I think just the process, and the being committed to sustaining certain standards and building, more than any specific. And you mentioned the players, and they're the ones that demonstrate that, and we can aspire to it and talk about it. But that first year is vivid, and those guys, we all grew together. And that's the beauty of this business, that you get those opportunities, and that continued over time. So I'm proud of that, and the players, and frankly, what they did for me and my staff.
One thing you said, Quinn, was in the Gordon Munson article, actually, that you couldn't see a clear path forward for yourself with this team. I guess, what did you mean by that?
Well, there's a lot of thoughts that come to your mind, and it goes to the same thing that I mentioned before. That you try to be introspective and analyze and all those things, and I just got back to the same place. It was time. Time for the Jazz to move forward, for me to move forward. It just made the most sense to me. And, as I said before, as well as I can, or as much as I can try to articulate that, it's not something that's easily done.
Quinn, not to belabor the point for a third time, but you said you didn't know what you were going to do next year, but you did say you knew what you were going to do on Halloween. Kind of suggests you're not coaching.
What tense did I use, by the way?
Yeah.
I don't know when. I know it might not be Easter Monday, because we were gone on so many Easters that we had to try to trick our kids into celebrating on Monday until they figured that out when they started school. A better question would be what would I dress up as? And I don't have an answer to that either.
What would you do with yourself if you're not coaching?
Those are questions that you give thought to, and I'll be able to give more thought to them, as things move forward right now. And as I said, this has been on my mind on so many different levels. I'm fortunate to have a family that that I really look forward to spending time with. And that's a pretty good start.
Danny, you've made 2 coaching hires that seemingly are incongruent, Doc Rivers and Brad Stevens. Can you tell us what the through line of maybe both those hires were?
Well, first of all, I just want, we have spent the last few weeks, like I said, talking, Quinn and I, a lot about a lot of different things. And I think it's pretty clear, we desperately wanted him to stay. And at the same time, I've walked away from coaching, and I walked away from being a general manager after 18 years in Boston. And so I trust that Quinn knows more what's best for him and his family, much more than we do. And but in those coaching searches, I spent a lot of time scouting in that time, and did a lot of broadcasting. I obviously played against Doc Rivers, and I got to know Doc off the court. And then when I was doing broadcasting for many years, for a few years, I should say, with TNT, I got to know Doc even more. So I had this relationship with him, and I had kind of had in my mind who the best coaches were. And then the same thing happened with Brad. But now I'm in a position where haven't really been looking to the same extent for those coaches. There's a lot of names I know, I'm familiar with in the coaching world, but this will be much different than the 2 previous ones, and probably more thorough.
We're going to take our time. Got to get it right.
Quinn, what were the conversations with the players like? Was it difficult to kind of let them know what your decision was?
They were, I think, very sincere, but not long, because I was wanting to speak to as many guys as I could, and there wasn't a ton of time from the time that we all had a chance to talk to Danny and Ryan and others, and so they weren't long, but they were positive, as you would expect with, I think, the relationships I had with those guys and the respect that we had for each other.
Danny, as far as timetable goes, is there a sense of urgency? Do you want something in place, somebody in place by draft, by free agency, or is that not really a concern?
Not a concern right now. We want to get this choice right. Got big shoes to fill.
Ryan, you've owned the team for about 1.5 years, and you've made a really clear point of how big a fan you were before you became an owner. And now that you've seen it from that side of the table, and you've gone through big decisions like this one, is it what you thought it was? How is it different?
Well, I mean, as a fan, I just remember Quinn constantly tripping over my feet, and I'm going to miss that. Getting in his way. But, you know, I think it's an interesting perspective. I mean, Quinn is a big part of, like, what really got me close to the Jazz. I mean, those years, and Steve and the Millers, and that was kind of when my real Jazz era began, to be close to the organization. So it's a little bit of a, you know, there's a fan, there's a coworker, there's a partnership, and that's unique and it's different. And I don't know how else to explain it until you're in those shoes, because you're channeling across a few different vectors here. And I just think I'm grateful. I mean, I think there's really not a playbook when it comes to this. I'm super fortunate to be in an organization that Quinn has helped build up. I mean, I'll tell you, he's left this organization a heck of a lot better than he found it. But more than that, he's built a foundation that we can go build from. I'm super fortunate to have Danny here. I mean, there's probably very few people that have a better mind in basketball than he does, and for him to be willing to come and help with this. And I think just this process alone, the idea of even this press conference is not really a normal organization and how things work like this. And I hope everyone appreciates the type of character that Quinn is, but also Danny and the organization that's been built here. Jay-Z has been a huge part of this and helping with this process. And so it's going to be super collaborative, just like it has been. And just kind of roll with it.
Last question will be Tony.
Coach, you know, when you look at your relationships with, you know, the guys that you've been here with for a long time, you know, Rudy and, you know, Joe, I know Joe's not here, you know, Royce, you know, guys that you've been with since the very infancy of their careers, you know, what kind of thoughts do you take away from that, you know, just knowing the kind of impact that you've had on some of those players?
Yeah, there's a couple guys in our staff too. That, you know, there's so many people that I think have worked together and made each other better. And I guess all the guys that you mentioned, and you mentioned some of them, there's more that I think the consistent thing over time is they all were willing, our whole group, to buy in and sacrifice for something that was bigger than them. And that's the most rewarding thing, and it's also the hardest thing. I mean, we're all wired to protect our own self-interest, and to be a part of a team, and to see that happen, you know, it fills you with a lot of pride, and it's a unique thing, and it's something that I hope to experience again and again. But we had that, and it's pretty special.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks.
All right.